Okay, Mark. So obviously we were just chatting off record, but for
Yep.
those people that have not met you before and not part of the bands and artists that you've either toured with, which we'll talk about in a minute, or you are on tour with right now, who are you and what do you do, please?
My name's Mark Threlfall. I am a tour manager, production manager, and touring rep. I work for a multitude of bands and companies. I've been doing this for about 8 years, and yeah,
Fantastic, fantastic. And you were actually in a band where you were in Milestones for a long time, doing some pretty cool tours with likes of Taking Back Sunday and sort of the pop punk royalty,
very much
really.
so.
Yeah, absolutely. So what did you take from that time in your life, and how did it contribute to where you are now, really?
I think yeah, like you're playing the milestones for the 6 or so years that we were doing it, and going from tours from all array of sizes. You do your proper club tours, circa 300 cap up to having the pleasure of sport like Mayday Parade and 2,500, 3,000 cap rooms. And I think it gives you like a real scale of, I guess, the duty of care and the stakes that are sort of there when you're going from venue to venue, size to size. And I think the duty of care is always there, but I think it obviously just comes up in severity. The bigger and the larger scale you go. And I think what it taught me was, you see so many incredible tour managers in that time, whether it be tour managers that Milestones had, or it was like Denton who was doing Mayday Parade at the time, or like with Confidence's guy or Taking Back Sunday's guy, and you see them at the helm of it all, and for a fact they've got the absolute weight of the world on their shoulders because the show is absolutely on them every single day. It's like if something goes wrong, everyone's pointing and looking at them and being like, right, what do we do?
Mm.
And for me, it's not only inspiring to see because they're such incredible people and they hold themselves so well despite the stress they're under, but it sort of lit a fire under me to be like, well, we've never had a bad tour manager, or we never had a bad tour manager, shall I say? And that sort of to me was like, well, what incredible characteristics do I see in these people that I feel like I could take over to a role and make it my own, and bring my own things in, and also sort of reinvent some things, maybe there's certain things that people don't think about, and really just seeing how incredibly people can do their job really lit the fire under me to be like, I could do that, and
Yeah.
I'd want to do that.
Yeah, which is amazing. And I think there's some nice moments there. You're talking about again duty of care, and I think that's one of the things. If anybody's listening to this, watching it, whatever, however they're consuming this, and they want to talk about the realities of tour management, we'll talk about artist management in a minute because I know you do a lot of that as well.
Yeah.
But, the realities of touring, and being a tour manager that most bands and artists, don't necessarily think about, and also any young person that wants to get into it, what are some of the realities that people might not see that you remember and you focus on when you're thinking about the pressure of the job?
I think honestly, and it can vary from artist to artist, client to client. It all depends on the full scale relationship that you have with them. But I think one thing that becomes extraordinarily apparent the more you do it is that you're so deeply intertwined into these people's lives. You really are. You're a constant for them at the end of the day, and that you're the face or the person that they turn to when things go wrong, and they're also the person that you're the person that they turn to when things are going really well.
Yes.
And the reality is, there's days where everything will be incredible, everything goes exactly how you want it to do, and you'll have those days where you feel like you're really winning. But then you'll also have those days where, members of the bands or the artists, whoever it may be, are having really, really bad days. Maybe they've got stuff going on away from tour or at home. Maybe, they're just having a general bad mental health day. And I think that a lot of the reality of when you get into it is that you don't realise that sort of thing that will almost fall under your remit. It's like you're not only, there to ensure that everything happens and it happens safely and it happens according to what according to, the time restraint you're in. You're there as, a friend, a mentor, everything. You've really got to step in and sort of be willing to be the constant that people like that need, because especially when it's younger artists who are breaking through, they've never had that, or they sort of never they've never been in this position where they're having to think about being away from home months on end and things are going wrong, or things away from tour are going wrong, and Yeah, I think it is almost that it's that constant thing of just being the being the person to turn to. Apologies.
Yeah, yeah,
But then on the other side of things, there's the realities are very much that. But then the other side of the reality is that you get big wins, and you feel big wins together as a team. You'll go through an entire tour, which is really leading up to this this one show, maybe the biggest show of the tour, and you get through it. Everybody nails it. Everything goes exactly how you want it to go, and it's really
yeah.
like the full circle moment that you come to the band after the show, and you're like, all the pre-production, all the months of slog before the tour, all the advance, and
Yes.
everything was worth it for that one moment.
Yes, yeah, yeah. It's a big, big thing, isn't it? And you talk about you looking after bands on tour, and obviously, again, from a musician side that the toll it takes. What kind of preparation do you have to do mentally, before you go out on a tour? And would you advise that tour managers who perhaps, obviously, I'm making a big generalization here, but is that something that you wish, tour managers, sort of realized a bit more, and people in the industry realized a bit more, that it's important to take time for yourself as well? And I wonder, do you do anything like that? Do you look after yourself before you go on tour? Because again, you mentioned it's can be intense. You could be dealing with everything.
Oh yeah, and a lot of the time you do deal with everything, and that especially on the grassroots up level, you are literally everything. I think I'm. I wish I looked after myself more, but I do, and I have learned over the last couple of years of just intense back to back tour, and that you're only ever one human,
Yeah.
and you do absolutely need to take time for yourself. And whether everyone's time for themselves looks completely different. That's not that's not linear. It's not just you go sit and have a cup of tea and you're fine. My idea of time for myself is sitting in a bunk with my laptop and just sort of taking myself away for a few hours. That's the idea of what I like.
Yeah.
In preparation for a tour or pre-tour, there'll always be, and it's funny because I feel like I do this every time where I go tour starts this date, but in reality, tour starts 3-4 days before because you're really in preparation mode. Then I think the only thing you can ever really do for yourself mentally is just get as prepared as possible. And I know that's so much easier said than done, but a lot of the stresses I find from being on the road as much as I am is through things that unfortunately you don't have a lot of control over. Things just happen, and you go, well, there is no way in this world that I could have foreseen that happening today. But
Mm-hmm.
if everything else that's within your remit is taken care of, or at least to the best of your ability, it becomes so much less of a stress where you're not going, oh well, that's actually the fourth thing that I've had to deal with today that I should have got done before tour.
Yeah.
You
So
can just look and go, well, it's fine.
yeah, so it's pre-prep basically,
Yeah.
pre-organization. Yeah, absolutely, man, absolutely. And before we move on to the artist management side of it, if you were talking to a room of students right now, or if you were talking to some young people who were looking at your work with Crawlers, for example, and how tight you are with that band, or looking at your resume as a touring artist yourself and going, oh, this is amazing. These, I want to do this. I want to be a tour manager. What are the key things if you were going to mentor anybody and someone was going to sit with you right there now in Plymouth? If you were going to mentor someone, what kind of things, if you could sort of give me 3 things that you are looking for, and then 3 things that you would like to see someone avoid, maybe some mistakes you've seen people make. What are you looking for in a prospective young tour manager, and what are you not looking for?
I think the first one for me, and it probably does go without saying, but it's such a it's just such a bonus, is just the willingness to work hard. I think that will override just about anything. A lot of learning can be done along the way, and you can pick up things that make your life easier. You can pick up things to get things done quicker. But the absolute biggest point is just be willing to work as hard as physically possible and work your fingers to the bone when you pick up an opportunity. And I'd say that is absolute number one point that I'd be looking at someone who wants to be a prospective tour manager. Second is general organization. I think it's looking at how you keep your own stuff in check outside of work. You know, things can fall by the wayside personally when you end up so busy. But essentially, if you're looking at your own personal stuff and you're like, look, I'm very good at keeping things organized. I'm good at keeping people organized. And if that's something as simple as going, well, when I make plans with a friend, I'm the one who's initiating the plans, and I'm the one who's saying, look, we're going to meet here at this time. They seem like such simple things at the time. You go, well, that is a lot of what being a tour manager is. You're directing people, and you're steering them in the correct directions. I think the third is just honesty. Everyone makes mistakes. We're all human. You end up with a million and one things on your plate at times. You take on jobs that are bigger than big. You take on maybe too much at times because being a freelancer and being in this industry, it's part and parcel of it. But if you make a mistake, be the first to admit it. Don't let somebody else find out that you've made the mistake without actually, and this goes in any industry, no matter whether you're a tour manager or a backline tech, whether you do a job that's outside of music, anything. Own up to the mistake. And one thing that I learned really early doors of doing this role, find the solution before you even tell people about the mistake if you physically can. And that's the only times that I've ever really made a mistake, and I've had to go to management or client and be like, look, this has happened, but here's the solution.
Yeah,
that's you want people, no matter what whatever their role is in the whole sphere of what the project is, you want to be the solutions guy.
yes.
And that, again, part and parcel of what the job is. You just need to say, look, this has happened. Here's the fix. We're all good. In terms of things to not look for, or in things to avoid, and it's tough. The job's stressful, but I think unnecessary conflict or just unnecessary sort of, not aggression, but the job can get stressful, and it does feel at times like you're ready to rip heads off because you do have a million people asking you different things. I think it's just avoiding any of that quick snap. That feels like at the time you go, well, I'm busy and I'm stressed. That feels really natural. Yeah. But yeah, being able to keep a cool head is important.
Yeah. It's really useful. Yeah. Give me if you've got any more, yeah. Yeah.
Again, things to avoid or things to not look for. I think sort of it's a tough one to try and word it, but a lot of the time it comes down to people being irresponsible. I think it's very easy to get carried away in the job that we do. You're around people who are having the best time of their lives, and you're also in turn having the best time of your life. The fact that this is work is absolutely bizarre and it feels like work, but traveling the world for work is an absolute pleasure, and it's very easy to get caught up in that, and it's very easy to forget that you are there as a constant. Yes. And you are there as a support mechanism for absolutely everybody. So, if it's a non-school night and you've got a day off the next day, sure, crack some beers open. Do whatever you need to relax at the end of the day. But I've seen it plenty of times where people have got horrendously carried away and put themselves in some situations where it's just not how you want the people who employ you to see you in that light when you're up the next day for a load and you're hanging. It's not great.
Yeah.
And other than that, it's just owning that sense of responsibility and making it your absolute sort of making it your purpose, really. It's a lot on your shoulders, but if you get up every day and sort of sit in your own head and be like, right, I have 4 bands to look after and 4 crew, and their safety and their comfortability and everything is in my hands, and I need to be that person to give them that.
Yeah,
you'll have a hell of a lot better time than sort of trying to come to terms with the fact that actually is your responsibility.
Yeah. So it's the accountability and just being as ready for that accountability as you possibly can be. Yeah,
100%. Being asked questions that you probably didn't think you'd be asked. It's impossible to always be one step ahead. It's always nice to be as far ahead as people as you can be. Preempt questions, simple things before anyone asks. Yeah, shower towels already in the dressing room. It's little things like that, but there are some things you can legitimately never be prepared for. People asking things, you go, well, that wasn't on my bingo card today. But it's being ready and at least being prepared enough to go, well, yeah, I have the time to do that. Of course.
Brilliant, mate. Brilliant. Oh, honestly, mate, to be honest, that it's great for me and my insight as well. So thank you very much for sharing those. I've got a bunch more questions for you, Mark, because I think this is really insightful. In terms of, because you obviously mentioned that your freelance role there and how you do a bunch of different work for different companies as well. You also work for Capital Artist Management as well. Now, how does that role differ, and how do the responsibilities there differ for you?
It's it's an interesting role because I do it from the road,
Mhm.
and that obviously comes with its challenges anyway. But it's with Capital, it's a lot more of like it's an overarching bigger picture. It's I get really dug into the details of being on the road when I'm out with like the likes of Crawlers and Stan Atlantic and a bunch of other artists who I look after on the road now. But when you're looking over a project, it's a little bit more. I don't like you're responsible for the bigger stuff, and you can pass on the likes of tour management and the likes of these sorts of things onto your relevant people. And it's a very fulfilling role because you're a key piece of what is essentially someone's career. You're
Yeah.
piecing that together, and you're really working hand in hand with them to develop them and achieve what they want to achieve. For themselves, and
Mm.
we're really lucky to work with some incredible artists there. We work with a project called Glue, which is Michael Schumann from Queens of the Stone Age. We work with a guy called Skylar Record. Who else do we manage? I've just started working with a really cool band from Liverpool called Shifu. They're
Oh, nice.
incredible and they're going to be doing some amazing things. Yeah, we do work with some amazing people, and again, seeing their progression and not only just in stature, but just personally, you get again,
Mm.
it's another role where you get so ingrained into people's lives and you learn so much about them. So to see them just come on leaps and bounds as you go is incredibly fulfilling.
Yeah, it sounds exciting, mate. And with all those responsibilities, Mark, then this is an obvious question, but I'm going to sort of spin it a little bit. I'm imagining there's no typical day in your life, so if you could take me through, some of the things you might do from waking up in the morning to going to bed at night. What does some of that entail? Again, there's probably no typical anything, but what is a day in your life kind of look like?
Um,
Give me,
I
getting
can
up in the morning and evening.
I can run you through a typical day on the road for Crawlers.
I'll go for it.
That's on the last headline tour we did in November 2022. Our standard would be, get up in the hotel, sort of drop a message in the group chat pretty much as soon as I wake up, just to be like, hey guys, van call is, insert time here. Maybe it's, depending on where we are, maybe it's midday. You go, just a reminder, van call's midday. Get up, coffee, shower, crack the laptop open, start looking through some emails, start talking about what's on for the day. Dealing with any like press requests or last minute interview requests that have came in, or liaising stuff that we've already had in the calendar. So getting in touch with any press people, being like, hey, just a reminder, we'll be here at this time. We'll meet you at this time. Come 12 o'clock, get everyone to the bus, bags in the back, on the road to the venue. Load in. We were pushing for 2 o'clock load-ins. It's nice to have the extra time and in the afternoon just to get yourself prepped. We would load in and start setting up backline. We had a front of house who sort of like doubled up and helped me as like backline technician. We sort of split that role in the middle. So whilst he was setting up backline, I'd be out speaking to the promoter, getting buyout, getting rider set up, and sort of ensuring that the dressing rooms were as short as they physically could be for the band for the day. Come about, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 o'clock, we'd then get the band up on stage, sound check, run a couple of songs through, get the ears mixed right. As soon as that was done, send the band off. They're good to do what they want for a little while. And at that point, that's when I just tidy up stage, sort of just throw black drape around the back, invite support on to come and sound check, go, if possible, go grab some dinner, come back from that, security brief, doors, show happens, end of show, pack down, load out, onto the hotel, onto the next day. That was it's a very typical condensed version of what a day with Crawlers looks like. That's, amongst all of the little small ad hoc bits that do come up, but that's my major sort of, I pardon the pun, that's like my milestones of the day with Crawlers, where like I sort of, I hold myself to, maybe 7 or 8 things that are absolutely going to happen every single show day. And then anything that happens in between, you just pick it up as you go.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned, was there anything that surprised you, given, you mentioned again that, your background there. We talked about, again, what a day looks like for you. Was there any sort of skill that you kind of, that surprised you needed to know? You mentioned like security and stuff like that, managing that side of things. you know, from what I know of tour managers, obviously, again, I'm used to working with some wonderful tour managers from a press standpoint. I've done a bunch of tours myself, so I've seen that. But like from one perspective, my own. But yeah, did anything surprise you about the job? And again, having to do things like handle security or at least do the the detail, whatever little things like that. Did you get caught off guard by any of the jobs when you first started doing it?
It's definitely a couple of things that was definitely an sort of like a baptism of fire
Yeah.
almost, where it was like, well, I remember, I think it was first night of the US tour, we did rock crawlers and we were in Atlanta, and there's a queue of honestly about 75 kids waiting at merch, all waiting to meet the band. And I had brought the
Oh,
band out at this point, and I was like saying to the guys, I was like, right, tug onto the end of my t-shirt, I'll walk you through. And I think it was only really at that moment when I walked them through and we seen the reaction of all the kids. And like they weren't like grabbing at them by any means, but they were very much like attention, wanting to speak to them immediately. And I was like, I'm actually gonna have to act as like not like a full on security guard, but I'm gonna have to stand in the way of these people and push them along.
mm,
And it's a very like it's a moment where you go, well, the band mean everything to these kids. Of course they do.
yeah.
They're incredible people, and two, they're an incredible band. So yeah, well, why would they not? But that was definitely one of the moments where I was like, geez, yeah, okay, you really do have to be not only like emotionally protecting these people, but you
Yes.
have to be there to physically protect them too if you need to. I think on top of that, I think I step in as backline technician for the band on certain tours, and again, like another role that I've done in the past. I know my way around a guitar, a bass, and a set of drums, but another one of those things where it was sort of like, well, we need someone, and it was I think it was the US tour was the first time I stepped in and did it as well as everything else, and it was another one where it was like, well, I'm doing merch, and I'm backline teching, and I'm tour managing, and I'm driving, and it was another one of those things where I was like, geez, I get about a spare 20 minutes each day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I, and then I mean, the only other one that I guess will ever catch anyone off guard is just the need, and maybe this is crawl specific. Maybe I'm sure there's plenty of bands who will sort of benefit from the same thing, but I think it's just the ability to be able to be vulnerable with your artist and actually, you spend so much time with them. They're like family,
Mm,
and they'll come to you with things that you would never expect them to come to you with. And at the same time, you need to be able to sit there and speak to them on a level. There's always a time for you to put your foot down and be, the stern tour manager who has to tell you to do things. It's like cut the crap, you're late now, or whatever it may be. But I think on the other side of it, when you're dealing with people as intensely as you often do,
mm.
I think there is that need and want to be able to be like, look, I'll sit and talk to you on a level for 2-3 hours. I don't care. Like if we're back at a hotel and you feel like you need to just ramble at me, by all means.
Yeah, that is lovely, Mark, and that is the crux of my next question. I've got about 4 or 5 more for you, and I think you've obviously built a connection. I read somewhere that you're called Uncle Mark by the Crawlers fans, which I
Yeah.
I thought was adorable. How important is that connection for you? Again, I've met a bunch of tour managers. Again, I know that the job is hard for you guys, and it's very intense. But how important is creating that connection with the band for you? You mentioned obviously supporting them through some quite intense experiences over in the US, but for you personally, how important is creating that connection with a band like
I think
Crawlers?
honestly, it actually before starting working with crawlers, I don't know how I would have answered that question, but I
Right.
think having the contacts that I do now and working this intensely to them, I realize how imperative it is to have a relationship with a band like that. I think it's not only I said before, like you end up family with like family with these people. They spend more time around you than all of your loved ones, and I think to really have a special connection with them and to be able to really be on a level with them will one not only make your time on the road a lot easier, it will immediately put you in a place with a band where you're respected and listened to, and your opinion and your almost like your judgment and say is firm. But one of the main things I found through getting in a place with the guys where I am, and even with the fans too, like it's just as important with everyone who will come and watch that band live, is it makes them feel like they're in a safe place.
Mm.
And I think it's honestly so important that the band, the fans, and everyone in that room feels like they're in a space where they can be themselves, they can be comfortable, and they're safe from any of the bullshit that happens outside of that venue, because there is plenty of it.
Yes.
And that's one thing that I've really found a lot of peace in, and a lot of sort of like pride in how I'm able and capable to run a show for crawlers, is that if there is an incident, it's dealt with as quickly as it happened. But a lot of the time, the fans are incredibly respectful, they're lovely people, and we're really able to create a community for those people who can come along and just be their absolute selves, and that's massive for me.
That's awesome, man. What a lovely experience. Again, thank you for sharing that with me. So as we wind down now, but a few more, where we look at your, what you enjoy most about the job. I mean, I've heard, again, that enthusiasm and that passion for not only working with crawlers, but just doing the best job you can. But what is it that you love? What is it that keeps you going on those early mornings, late nights, when you've got, people to organize? What is it that motivates you? What do you love most about the job?
I think my favorite part of any day is that first 5 minutes of the show. That's like my absolute bliss period, where you've grafted all day, the band have sound checked, you've looked after everybody, everyone's taken care of. The evening is, you can see the finish line of the day, but it's that moment where sound and lights are killed, the backing track starts, the intro track starts, and that first 5 minutes, like that first initial roar as the band walk on stage, that's the one thing I think every morning that just drags my ass out of bed, because it's so exciting. You get like that secondhand excitement through fans that it's like, yeah, I watch the show every single night and I never get bored of it. But they're watching it for the first time a lot of the time, and it's just so unbelievably special to be able to see that and be like, this band means so much to people, and it's a pleasure to be able to like assist and deliver on that show.
Awesome, man. Awesome. That's a beautiful thing. And I want you to, I'm not gonna put a time limit in terms of a number on this for you, but I imagine you've got some beautiful memories that are your own as well. Obviously, again, you've helped create some wonderful memories for crawlers and for other bands on their own tours. But for you personally, through your career, whether it's related to a tour you've been on as a manager, or is it related to an artist that you've supported, or related to even a show that you've played yourself, what are some of the memories that you will carry with you forever? It could be 2, it could be 4, it could be 10. Give me some of your favorite memories that will stay with you forever in this industry.
I think trying to go chronologically, working backwards up to where I am now.
Yeah.
Playing House of Blues Anaheim with Milestones was a pretty special one. Being able to sort of walk out and just see the endless heads, and the show really was, and like we got plenty of incredible footage that I can always look back on that. But that's one that always sticks in my brain, especially from that period for Milestones. It was just genuinely incredible. It really was. Onwards from that, I would say probably the next one in line would be probably the first ever crawler show I ever worked. We did 2 back-to-back sellout shows at the Arts Club in Liverpool before it sadly closed. And that was like the band's first ever real experience of going out into the touring world. And I think it blew them away as much as it did anybody. I don't know what they knew what to expect, but I remember them playing Come Over Again for the first time, and the room was I've just never heard a crowd so loud. It was insane, really. We did a support slot for Manskin in Europe. That's another one that will always stand out. Again, the hospitality in Europe is just so incredible anyway. But the venue staff, it was for Montreux Jazz Festival. They were absolutely incredible. Like the staff alone made that an experience to never forget. And then we came to the show, and that completely blew it out of the water. It was incredible. And then our Liverpool headline on the November tour that's just gone. Band's biggest ever headline show to date. About 1,200 people in Academy 1 in Liverpool, and I think it really cemented a special moment.
Yeah, man, that's amazing. Like, it's so cool to see, not only the band's success, but how much you've enjoyed it and how passionate you are. It hasn't burnt you out at all, has it? That enthusiasm's still there, which is
no. I question whether it ever will. If I'm honest, I've worked in music for 8 or so years, maybe a little bit longer now, and I spend more time on the road than I do at home, and I still get up every morning and I still do it. And although I might be tired some days, it never gets old.
Yeah, man, you got the love for it. That's fantastic. Before we wind up, so tell me about your other works. The Black Case, and obviously I've sort of done a little bit of research into that. What is that? Tell me about. It looks a bit like a one-stop shop for production, for touring. Great service for any musicians and creatives. So what is the Black Case, and what do you want people
So
to know about it?
the Black Case is sort of, as a company, we service. It's actually what we service crawlers touring under.
Yeah.
But you hit the nail on the head. The idea is that we are a one-stop shop for touring. So we can go and do a club show, and we can supply a tour manager and a van, and that's it. Or we can go right up to arenas, and we can supply buses, tour managers, drivers, production, lights, our own PA, absolutely everything. And I think the one thing I've always pushed with the Black Case, and the one thing that I've always sort of, because essentially I acquire as much new business for the company as I physically can. It's part of my whole mission statement is that there is just not a job we can't do.
Yeah.
If I can't do it, or if my business partner James can't do it, we absolutely will know somebody can do it.
Yeah.
So, we look after crawlers, we look after Jamie Webster, we look after the Lathams. I've just taken Lake Malice out on tour for a month, and I have tours booked in for the rest of this year that are all underneath the Black Case. I'm currently on tour with RuPaul's Drag Race season 4. So my whole idea behind the Black Case is you don't have to go and hire a tour manager and then go get a van from somewhere else. Oh, and then you need to hire some lights, and you need to go here. Come to us, give us the requirements, give us the budget, and we will just go out and source all of it for you, and we'll just come back with a full scale package. And that's to take the stress off managers, to take the stress off band. All you've got to do is ask for it. That's what I say to anytime I speak to management, anytime the band have a outrageous idea that seems almost impossible. As simple as all you have to do is ask the question, and we'll go and get it done.
Yeah, it's in my bookmarks, Mark. It's I was like, it's the most succinct. It's the most succinct one-stop shop I've ever seen. Of just everything's there. So it can be very useful for a lot of people.
Yeah, keep a hold of it, man. Throw the name about. Say we're everywhere, and we can operate wherever's needed.
Absolutely, Mark. Well, it's been a pleasure. I've got one more admin question to do, which is basically testing how well I've done my job tonight. Is there anything that I have missed? Anything that you want to plug and promote that I've missed tonight? Anything you want to say to people before we finish up?
I think you've hit the absolute nail on the head. I appreciate you very much for having me. It's meant quite a lot, actually, to be able to sit and speak about the successes and the reality of the job. I think it's not spoken about enough, and if there is anyone who wants to get into this, there's never a better time to do it. It's probably the busiest time music has ever seen right now in the arts and entertainment industry in general. My inbox is always open. I'm happy to speak to whoever about absolutely anything to do with this job, because I've done it for that long that if I can help someone get on the road to doing it, I'd absolutely love to do it.
Fantastic, mate. That's a wonderful thing. Just squeeze one in extra that I like to ask bands and artists as well. Outside of music, it can be from anybody. Is there a gem, a nugget of advice that you've received from a member of family, from a friend, from a band, from another tour manager? Can be music related, can be anything. Life advice, a key tip, something you carry with you wherever you go. Have you got anything to share for people that might be listening, watching? Whatever. I put you on the spot now, haven't I?
No, I've had a fair few bits of decent advice over the years, and I'll probably pull it from a member of family, actually, who I think it was around the time that I was going full time with music for the first time ever.
Yeah.
And I remember speaking to him about it, and it was all very up in the air. And I remember him just sort of struggling, going, "It doesn't matter what you do, just do it with purpose." And I was like, you know what? That's it. If you want to do it properly. And the world has weird ways of paying it back. And
yes,
I've been doing this full time for years, and I don't doubt that anybody else who wants to do this is also capable of doing so. Just get him, work hard, and just do it properly.
Mate, I love it. I feel motivated. So thank you so much for your time this evening,
No,
Mark.
thank you.
And honestly, I wish you the absolute best, mate. You're a legend, and you've obviously worked very hard. So it's good to see, and thank you so much for spending the time with me.